Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. Gain valuable insights by attending the podcast, then complete the assessment test to download your certificate. To do this, follow these simple steps. Click on the link in your description to access the session. Create a free account and attend the podcast. After the podcast, take the assessment test and download your certificate. It's easy, and it's free. We highly recommend checking out our subscription. Let's get started.
And you've been on the ground with both sides, right? Like you rightly mentioned. So what are some early warning signs that a founder is going to struggle post-acquisition? And how do you coach through that?
Early warning signs that a founder is going to struggle with post-acquisition. I think that you don't necessarily need to have warm and fuzzies as a seller with the buyer, but you should have strong feelings about the buyer's honesty. You want to
Yes.
sell to someone who has integrity, and you want to sell to
Yep.
someone who is going to speak truth to you, even if you don't necessarily like what they're saying. If they're
Yep.
being forthright and honest, that's very good. And because you're going to have to continue working with this person. Even if you're getting 90 or 95% of cash up front, even if you're getting 100% of cash up front, you want to be giving your legacy over to someone who's going to do the right thing with it.
Yep.
So I would say number one is you want to work with someone honest, and we're all in professional services. We have good intuitive senses for people, so trust yourself there. Um, I think that if you're selling to someone who is buying for the first time, you better get a lot of money up front, because even if they're saying things that you really resonate with, even if they're offering you, a great growth path, I would caution you against partnering with them for a better future. If you're not getting a lot of money up front, at least 50%, but ideally considerably more than that. Let's see what else.
Welcome back to Accounting M&A Insider. I'm your host Saul, and today we are going beyond numbers, EBITDA multiples, and deal structures. We are talking about something just as crucial but often overlooked: the human side of M&A. What happens when founders who spent decades building firms suddenly face the reality of stepping away? How do they handle the mix of strategy, identity, and legacy? To dive into this, I've got with me Geoff Bruskin, founder of White Tiger Connections. Geoff works with founders and executives, helping them navigate these emotional and leadership transitions that make or break both the exit and what comes after. Geoff, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Saul. I'm happy to be here with you.
Absolutely. So, Geoff, let's start with your journey. For listeners who may not know White Tiger Connections, can you walk us through how you got into executive coaching and what led you there?
Sure. So my background, Saul, is executive recruitment for financial services companies, specifically venture capital backed FinServ companies. And I did
Right.
that for 3 years out of college. I made partner at a firm there following, and then opened my own executive recruiting firm in financial services in 2019. And I was
Right.
introduced to a retired PwC alumni who, in his
Mhm.
retirement, he was doing M&A work for $100 million CPA firms in New York. So maybe some firms that your listeners, Saul, are familiar with. We worked for
Mhm.
Marks Paneth before the CBiz acquisition. We worked for Friedman before the Markham acquisition, which is now also CBiz. We
Yes.
work for PKF O'Connor Davies and Anshin Block and Anshin, and we were helping them do buy side M&A, CPA firms between a million and 20 million. And my mentor in the space, he needed an executive recruiter because his clients, these large accounting firms, were in need of partners to be recruited for their tax, their consulting, their valuation businesses. And so I really got to deep dive into the public accounting profession with him. And my
Hmm.
background, as you know, you can tell from an executive recruiting standpoint, always had a lot to do with kind of coaching and consulting. It started my career in an executive capacity, and then it kind of transitioned into being in the context of mergers and acquisitions when I started working very deep in accounting. And my mentor retired in 2022. This was
Hmm.
after COVID was starting to wind down and just a tremendous
Yeah.
consolidation was beginning to happen in the accounting profession. It was after Eisner and Citrin had taken their original round of PE, and
Yep.
it just became a super dynamic and conversation-rich space about all of the M&A opportunity. And so I decided I really wanted to focus on the accounting profession. And
Right.
I've built a great team, and we now do recruiting, we do M&A, and we do consulting work for accounting firms that are figuring out what combination of those three things they might need in order to realize their objectives. And so all of them have a very heavy human element, legacy-oriented element, quality of life element, dealing with some of the realities in the space.
Brilliant, brilliant. And this is really interesting, how you got into it. And by all means, I think you're one of those few people who were able to get to this point. So, kudos to you. And in your work, you've probably seen some patterns, right? Like, what type of founders do you typically work with? Are these like recurring challenges across accounting firm owners, entrepreneurs, and others that you coach?
I think so. I think there's different profiles, Saul. So some of them are, there you can kind of I hate putting people into buckets because all people
Hmm.
are so different, but
Yeah.
there are some patterns. There's maybe I'll start at the lowest end of the spectrum and then we'll work up to the higher end. Um,
Yep.
there are the six-figure firm owners, maybe who fall into two categories, a 1A and a 1B. The 1A is
Mm.
they've really built a job for themselves, where
Right.
whether they're 300,000 in revenue or 800,000 in revenue, they're only making 150 to $250,000, and they're working with a lot of
Mm.
clients, and they don't have great systems, and so they have kind of a menu of options which are available to them either in M&A or recruiting or in systems enhancement, and so I'll work with owners in those regards.
Yep.
Then there's the owner of the $800,000 firm that makes 500,000 a year because he's got some really strong systems in place. He's working with higher value clients, things like that.
Right.
And so there's a different sort of conversation ecosystem that happens with those individuals. Then you
Yep.
start to get into larger practices. I say practices and not firms because for me, a
Yes.
practice goal is still kind of a book of business. So you could be 1.5 million or 2 million or even 3 million and still be an owner operated business. And that really means that you don't have any other key leadership on your team. You
Yep.
might have key staff at that size,
Yep.
but nobody who's necessarily a natural successor who, say, has the appetite to take an SBA loan in order to exit you. And in absence of that kind of tenacity, you might have technical talent, but not the co-leadership. There are certain kinds of conversations that we have in those regards about what possibilities are available and what roadblocks. And then you get into the practices that are firms, where there is multiple leaders, and that's whether it's 1 million in revenue or if it's 8 million in revenue, depending on the client base, depending on how much we're billing the clients, if we're offering multiple services to the clients, how modernized your technology stack is. There are certain menu of options that are available to help these owners reach their aims, whether their aims are succession oriented or growth oriented, or maybe even both. And then
Yeah.
there are really the sophisticated firms that are somewhere north of 4 or 5 million, and they have really great systems in place. And this is actually a modern class of firm that I'm seeing, Saul, that only have sprung up in like the last 8 to 10, even 5 to 7 years. And I'm
Yes.
sure that everybody who's on LinkedIn or who's on X and follows hashtag tax Twitter, let's say, you know who the major influencer players are that are kind of leading the charge in the industry from a exemplary standpoint. And this is what I try to help coach some of my clients into who are growth oriented, how to build these firms that they're able to be the CEO of as opposed to the managing partner of.
Do you want to earn CPE credit? Take this course of MyCPE 1 to earn free credit. Click the link in the description to get started.
I love it. And I guess, you're absolutely right. I can definitely agree with you on that. These modern firms, I guess it has taken shape because I guess COVID was an accelerator for these firms. They adapted to the change. They were able to find the tools and upgrade their firms and bring it to that level that now they are able to have the key leadership people in place, and it's running, and great systems, great processes, everything structured out. In fact, I'd rather say that, more than running a firm or a practice, they're running a business, because they could actually step away and like, okay, I'm not going to be available for next 2 weeks, but they don't need to worry about their business because it's running. They got people there who making it happen, which is great. All right. So I'll be honest, I think a lot of the founders underestimate how personal this whole exit journey really is. It's not just about handing over your client list or making sure your EBITDA holds up. It's about identity, pride, and sometimes even fear of what comes next.
Always,
So,
always.
so do you see that too?
I do. Yeah, I would always see the fear, and the fear is going to be rooted in practicality. It's not it's not an irrational fear, right? There's the fear of legacy loss. I mean, even the clients, just using a dramatic example, even if you're getting 90 or 95 or 100% of cash down for the exit of your practice, which is only possible for some, you have the fear that, are your staff going to be treated well, your client's going to be treated well. So even in the best case scenario, it's a very stressful process. Private equity does not pay 90 or 80% of cash down, but they're going to pay more than what a bank would value your practice at if you have strong systems. So I deal a lot with the question of you're kind of on the cusp of considerably more money from a private equity standpoint than what a bank loan would get you, but there's less cash up front. So how do you think about fear in a practical context there and a risk mitigation analysis framework? Um, and then I work with a lot of owners who are trying to go from working in a job that they've created for themselves to running a business, as you said. And that requires reinvesting in the firm.
Yes.
So hiring a key staff. I have a client right now who does 2 million in revenue, makes about 650,000 a year, has a couple staff who are key staff, but no leadership where he could take a 2 week vacation and not have to worry about anything, even a 1 week vacation. And so
Yeah.
my suggestion to him is that he needs to look at a 200 to $250,000 director,
Yeah.
who is a character-rich individual who has the appetite for leadership growth. And it's not really appetizing to him to think about cutting his earnings in half. Uh,
Yeah.
but that's the kind of investment that will help get him from a $2 million top line to a $5 million top line, and a $650,000 SDE to a $2 million SDE, and it's what will make the difference between a $3 million exit and an $11 million exit. And so
Yes.
these are things that are very emotional. They're practical context, but they're emotional processes.
I love how you put it. It's so practical and so true. And it clearly speaks about your experience. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh, my
Now,
pleasure.
yeah, now there's a lot of buzz around vulnerability in leadership, right? But in a founder's context, especially for accountants who are trained to be precise, controlled, and buttoned up, what does vulnerability really look like?
That's such a great question. Well, I guess I'll speak for myself. I think using ourself as an example is the best way to be vulnerable.
Yes.
That I think that we have to, and I'm not an accountant, but I think like one because Saul, I spend all my day with accountants. So I'm going to say we. I think we have to lead by example. And so it's hard to do that. It's hard as owners to look at hiring. And I think hiring is the best way to talk about the vulnerability context, Saul, because um, whether you're interested in succession planning or whether you're interested in growth, hiring is naturally going to be a part of how you achieve either of those two things.
Yeah.
Hiring well. And I think that, as we make key hires to help us fulfill our objectives, it's really important to approach those key hires honestly. So instead of with maybe a traditional corporate management mindset where we're trying to control the people who we're hiring and get them to fit into a box. Hiring for leadership has to do with hiring people who have character. The technical
Right.
competency is table stakes. It's the character that's going to create those differentiation factors that allow for the kind of scale that we're talking about,
Mhm.
either scale of EV with enterprise value with succession planning or scale with growth. Um, and so that's very vulnerable to be honest and to empower people who are charactered, like you were maybe as an owner, right? You're talking to your audience now. And a lot of professionals, not only accountants, but all professionals have kind of earned some jadedness because there are a lot of people today who don't have that character. And so it's hard to step outside of, an awareness of having been burned before and kind of having, your quills up like a porcupine when you're meeting people. And I think that the best way to be vulnerable is really to take each meeting and to give the person who's across from you the benefit of the doubt and to assess them as a prospective leader in your firm and to think about what could be possible. Outside of that, what I guess I'll caution owners against, being too vulnerable with someone who wants to buy your firm, right? I think that
Yeah.
we there is some earned and some warranted defensiveness that sellers have to have. But
Yes.
I think that when we're talking about hiring or expanding our teams, the best way to get the best people is to meet them as a human and not necessarily as a boss.
Nice, nice. I really love this. Now, here's a paradox, right? Buyers and employees can sense actually when a leader is holding back. So, and you talked about, the warranted defensiveness that as a seller you need to have. But like buyers and employees, they can actually sense when the leader is holding back. So, how does the vulnerability actually coexist with the high performance expectations, especially in client I'm like the client driven industries like accounting?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. So I think it's really hard if you haven't it's really hard to change your leadership style with your existing team because your existing team is used to you behaving in a certain way, and it's like it could almost be upsetting to the balance of the firm if you were to have try to have a dramatic change in style. So I'm not sure I really agree with the coaches who, will say you need to turn on a dime and change things. I think your best opportunity for change has to do with how you meet new people. New is
Hmm.
new. You have an opportunity to create a totally new first impression and a totally new style, especially if you're interviewing or you're meeting people who themselves have a leadership quality to their character. Um,
Right.
I think that's, the bet the what the best candidates, and I'm sorry to talk so much about recruitment, but it's so imperative. The best candidates
Yes.
have this, like you said, they can tell when a leader is holding back. And if they're leaving a job, they're going to be looking for a job that has an opportunity and they're good, right? They want to spread their wings. And so where are they
Yes.
able to do that? It's in an environment where they have a genuine relationship, an open relationship. And it doesn't mean that you need to treat them with kid gloves, having
Hmm.
hard conversations, even in an interview process about what your expectations are and, how many hours they need to work and what their mindset needs to be about bringing in business or providing exceptional client service. These are things which should make someone who has character excited about working with you. With your existing staff, if you have high performing people on your team who you're sensing maybe you're not getting their best work product and that's frustrating for you, um, I think that there's probably some merit to the frustration that you have, and I see a lot of that, Saul. I see people who, talk about key staff that they have on their team who they just wish were a little bit more motivated, a little bit more, would get in at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 9:15, that kind of thing, and like they did when they were coming up in their career, and they don't necessarily know how to have those conversations with them. And I think
Hmm.
it's a fragile balance because we don't want to be too vulnerable as leaders where we're kind of giving over our power to someone who works for us, and that could, like I said, could really upset the balance of
Oh
just
yeah.
office dynamics. Um, but I think taking the time to sit with those people and to try to get to know them to better, right? To make them feel like you care about them and you're invested in helping them get the best out of themselves and them getting the best out of their careers, wherever that might take them. I think that's your best chance at kind of seeing if there's a corner of the page that you can turn and maybe invite them into a conversation about compensation growth or about equity or about profit sharing, and to pressure test, and dangle a carrot and talk about the needs that you have, and then to trust your intuition because we want to encourage vulnerability and genuine humanity, but we don't want to take it so far that we put ourselves in a precarious position.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now.
I love it. I love how you're bringing the human element of it out, you know. But until the time that somebody listens to our podcast, and after they've listened to our podcast, I'm pretty certain there'll be a lot of thoughts running in their minds for all the people who are listening in. But so what really happens? I'm pretty certain you come across these kind of individuals. But so what really happens when founders don't have a safe space to unpack their fears or identify questions before, or the identity question? Sorry, I don't mean identity. Like, so what really happens when the founders don't really have a safe place to unpack their fears or identity questions before selling? What risks do you see?
So I think that, the you know the look, safety is super important, right? Like we need to, but but I think it's also time. I think time might even be a better point. In terms of what I see, Saul, a lot of founders are so busy servicing their clients, and then whatever time they have left over is spent, trying to live a life and spend time with their family and maybe do things that they enjoy, like golf, especially as get past your 50s and 60s. It's hard to find the time to ask yourself hard questions and to push forward
Yes.
strategic initiatives in your company because you're so tactically involved in keeping the ship afloat. And that, I think, is the biggest travesty, that if you don't have someone trusted who is not trying to sell you something, but who you have a relationship with as a founder, as a firm owner, and who you can talk with about some of your challenges and how to actually move them forward in a positive way, how to take actual steps forward. There's a lot in the accounting profession, a lot of kind of circuitous dialogue about the talent crisis is a difficult thing, which it is. Buyers are sharks and typically they want to get the best deal for them, which is true. And so it can feel very lonely. And so
Yeah.
I think a lot of the stagnation, Saul, is as a result of just there, there's not necessarily someone that you can trust to be a subject matter expert who has your best interest at heart. And so I think that to that extent, safety is important because you don't necessarily have to have your guard up. You can earnestly listen to, an industry expert's expertise. And social media has done a great job of, I think, bringing to the forefront some people who are leaders in the space who talk about, Jason Statz is an example that comes to mind
Yeah.
immediately. Best practices for running a firm, his opinion about technology and what products are good to use, ideas about hiring remotely and how to do it effectively. And I think that we as thought leaders, myself being one of them, have work to do in how to bridge, the best firm scenario and maybe just things about tech or about, client service models with the realities that the firm owners who populate the profession are facing currently. How can we bridge that? And I don't know that I have an answer to that question, but I think that's where our work lies.
All right, no worries. I mean, that's okay. But at least it will get some thoughts running in the people who are listening to this. So thank you for
Sure.
sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
So now, yep. So now let's talk about timing, right? In your experience, when's the ideal moment for a founder to start coaching? Or is it years before an exit, or should it be during an M&A process, or should it be after the sale when the dust has already settled?
Now is the best time to start. Now is the best time to start looking for a coach, to
Right.
start looking for a consultant, not to start dive in and to start being coached or consulting. Different people respond to different things in different ways. So there
Yeah.
are some, there's someone out there, whoever you are, that is going to be good for you, that's going to give you what you're looking for in terms of subject matter expertise, in terms of ability to help you deliver on the outcome that you want, not just talk about the outcome, but deliver on the outcome. And so I think that we should all always be on the lookout for mentors who can help us self-motivate and self-drive towards the outcomes that we want.
I agree to you. From what I've seen, about 70% of small business owners, they actually regret their exit within a year. And it is not because, the deal terms were bad, but because emotionally they weren't ready. Right. So, what blind spots do you see in founders who prepare financially but not emotionally?
Such a great question. Well, we kind of talked about the identity thing for a second a minute ago, and it's a really important point. A lot of the owners who I talk to, Saul, they know that they're not ready for an exit, and it's not that they need the money or even that their money wouldn't be, from they could collect their valuation and then they could put that money into the S&P or into real estate or into other things in their life and it's maybe money and secure financial security is part of it, but often what I find is that when somebody is even remotely open to the concept of an exit, money is a subordinate thing. They want to be treated fairly, but it's subordinate. A lot more has to do with the emotional side, the identity side. And I think that that's warranted. I'll talk about myself. I wife and two kids, and my wife is a stay-at-home mom, which is great for our family. It works well because I love to work. I'm
Yeah.
happiest when I'm pounding away 12 to 16 hours a day, and a little bit even on the weekends. And so I think being honest with ourselves is important. The biggest thing that I hear is that I love what I do, I just don't want to do it as much. And
Yes.
then we kind of go back to the coaching side of things that somebody who is really a subject matter expert in the space, the reason why I'll talk about myself for a second, why I have developed this expertise in recruiting and in M&A and in consulting in terms of firm optimization, technology, operations, process, realization, client billing models, ancillary services the whole ecosystem, I've developed that because what I enjoy the most, Saul, is I like working with people and I like helping
Yeah.
firm owners understand what options they have, what they should think about. Because when I hear that, I love what I do, I just don't want to be working as much. My next question is, well, tell me about your structure. What are we and I love to start to try to get into it and to figure out what possibilities make sense. And even if I'm just helping someone start to think about something differently, that's really exciting for me because accounting, if we're talking about our industry, right, it's so imperative. There's so much more demand for this service than there is supply of people who can do it. And so if we can solve for operations and delivery models and capacity building, then we'll have great quality of life running firms, and we'll also be able to do very well financially. So I don't think it's a bad thing that owners have their identities wrapped up in their business. I actually think that that's a good thing. I think that if I could wave a wand and inspire something into firm owners, it would be to carve out more time to think about strategy because especially with AI and remote and offshore and the tech advancements that are being made and the access to information with social media and what people like Jason Stats are putting out there, there's more ability to bridge the job that you've built for yourself to running a business, running a firm, and even if you're 60, the next 5 years could look really exciting for you in making that transition. Maybe stressful in some ways, but that thing that you long for is not out of reach.
Yep. And coaching isn't just about a mindset, right? It's also about help. It's also a help during negotiations, when especially when the power dynamic shift in diligence, and
Absolutely.
suddenly a founder is like, isn't fully in control. So, when that situation happens, how can coaching really smooth through these bumps?
So one thing, it's a great point about diligence and the power dynamic shifting, Saul. One thing is to make sure that you're accurately representing information with the broker that you're working with. Because if
Right.
you and work with a broker,
Yeah.
we do business brokerage. Please talk to me, but work with a broker because it's a lot
Yes.
like navigating a legal process without a lawyer. Even if you've helped
Yeah.
clients sell, you should still work with a broker. You're going to pay their fee, but your ultimate valuation realization is going to be much higher than what their fee is. So I cannot stress that strongly enough. If you are representing details about your firm, like your recasted P&L with add backs accurately, then the power dynamics aren't going to change during the diligence process. And so a good broker is going to be able to coach you through an aggressive but a realistic asking price in the context of an accurate recasting and an accurate reading of what your actual infrastructure and client base looks like. So yes, I think coaching before you engage in a sell side capacity and coaching throughout is going to be really advantageous.
Absolutely. Now, one thing that has intrigued me about your work is that it's not just about the sellers, right? Let's flip the script. Should buyers, especially private equity partners or strategic acquirers, consider coaching themselves to better work with founders they are buying from?
Potentially, yes. I would say there are a lot of so I'll say this. So I'm probably not the best coach for buyers. I think there are people who are a lot better than me in that regard. The I find that so we work also on the buy side. So thank you for the invitation to talk about that. So we do work both on the sell side or on the buy side. And
Right.
the buyers who I work with, Saul, who I have who I have the best relationship with, um, they work with me because I'm very candid with them. I
Yeah.
do not lead them down a rosy path. I give them very hard realities about, look, the accounting profession. I think there's probably 100 buyers to one seller today in the
Yeah.
accounting profession writ large. And that might be surprising
Very
for some
true.
people to hear because there are a lot of deals that are on the market, and those deals might stay on the market because maybe the seller doesn't have a realistic expectation of what they're going to get, or they're looking for the right fit. And so maybe they're willing to come down if they feel that fit from what their asking price is. But buyers, when a buyer is successful, he's going to buy again.
Yep.
And so the buyers, there are new buyers coming into the market all the time. There are serially successful buyers. So there's more buy side demand than there is sell side supply, especially the sell side supply that a lot of the buyers want, which is entity rich practices, recurring revenue practices, practices that have stable staff infrastructure. We go back to what I like to help sellers build the thing that the buyers want to buy. Um, but the buyers I work with respect me for my candor because I am very direct with them if they're buying for the first time, what it's going to take in order to be successful. If they've bought before or if they've built a practice, sometimes they're floored with what valuations look like. I had a call this morning to that effect. Um, and a lot of times buyers won't work with me because of what I tell them, and that's a great sign that I'm not wasting my time or theirs with this undertaking. But I think that I don't necessarily think coaching is what I would suggest for buyers. I would definitely suggest that before you quote unquote go to market and start spending time really going after sell side firms, that you talk to a dozen subject matter experts in the space and self coach through osmosis And if you're willing to represent to private equity or to a bank that you're serious about running a firm, you should rely on your own intuitive ability to triangulate information. That's my best advice to buyers.
Well, I'll take it. I'll take it, and all the buyers who are on the call, they should definitely take that. And you've been on the ground with both sides, right? Like you rightly mentioned. So, what are some early warning signs that a founder is going to struggle post acquisition, and how do you coach through that?
Ah, early warning signs that a founder is going to struggle with post-acquisition. So, I think that you don't necessarily need to have warm and fuzzies as a seller with the buyer, but you should have strong feelings about the buyer's honesty. You want to
Yes.
sell to someone who has integrity, and you want to sell to
Yep.
someone who is going to speak truth to you, even if you don't necessarily like what they're saying. If they're
Yep.
being forthright and honest, that's very good. And because you're going to have to continue working with this person, even if you're getting 90 or 95% of cash up front, even if you're getting 100% of cash up front, you want to be giving your legacy over to someone who's going to do the right thing with it.
Yep.
Um, so I would say number one is you want to work with someone honest, and we're all in professional services. We have good intuitive senses for people, so trust yourself there. Um, I think that if you're selling to someone who is buying for the first time, you better get a lot of money up front, because even if they're saying things that you really resonate with, even if they're offering you a great growth path, I would caution you against partnering with them for a better future. If you're not getting a lot of money up front, at least 50%, but ideally considerably more than that. Let's see what else. Just consult with a broker to make sure that the valuation and the deal structure that you're getting is legitimate. Don't do your own deal. I can't emphasize it enough.
Yes. Yes. Don't do it. Don't even trust AI to do it for you.
You know what, Saul, I have not checked AI. I would imagine that AI probably gives there's probably, like anything, there's probably some objective truth that AI will give about things like valuation. If you put your firm data into AI, it could give you some info about valuation and ranges and maybe ideas about deal structure, but there are certainly a lot of nuances to your firm that AI is not going to be able to really triangulate a good deal structure for you. And again, the most important thing, Saul, is that you are working with somebody who is a good person, is going to do the right thing by you and your clients and your staff.
Absolutely. So, talking about good persons, have you seen buyers successfully integrate founders into leadership post sale? So, and if you could, like what made those, if you could also enlighten that what made those cases actually work while others fall apart.
So the financial structure and the financial incentives have to be solid. That's the first thing. If the financial structure is fair and the incentives are aligned, it's the best possible chance for founders to be integrated into leadership positions after a sale. The other thing that you're going to want if you're going to be in a leadership position for a period of years after you sell your firm is you want to work with someone who has deep subject matter expertise in the space. I have a client who was the managing partner of tax for a substantial eight-figure firm and left, and is now the CEO of a roll-up. He's backed by a multifamily office, and he has a lot of experience not only in running a large book of business, but having other leaders report into him who each own books of business in certain
Nice.
specific subject matter expertise. A caution against a private equity backing that does not have a sophisticated corporate infrastructure. The private equity firm is kind of an ivory tower unless it has operating executives who are involved in the operations of the business. And so if you're
Yes.
interested in, that second bite of the apple with a rolled, component of your equity and strong incentives, and the story is good, but it's missing that corporate component to it that you're excited about, I would caution you against that. When it has that strong corporate leadership, operating executive structure that have industry experience in the space, and I'm not necessarily talking about like Big Four experience because that's a totally different dimension. You want regional or small national firm experience. So that there are a lot of parallels between the sort of work that you're going to be doing and what they have experience doing.
Well, I'm going to be tapping into your professional acumen a little bit more. So, let's bridge hard value with soft value. Everyone, when it comes to mergers and acquisitions, everybody is talking about EBITDA, revenue multiples, pipeline quality. But you talk about emotional KPIs. So, what are some of those metrics that founders should track in their leadership journey?
So I think that number one is just good person. Just have a good sense of the person. It should be the kind of person that you would feel comfortable with as your neighbor, is what I like to say. It doesn't
Yeah.
need to be, family or your best friend, but if you were living next door to them, that you would feel good and at peace with the way that, they live their life and your intuitive impression of them.
Yeah.
If your kids and your spouse are home and you're not and your neighbor is home, right? That's the kind of environment that I want in someone who's buying my firm. Um, a lot of it is intangible. So all on the emotional side, you have to feel good about it.
Yeah.
Valuations are obviously paramount. I have a situation I'm dealing with right now, which is between a $2 and a $3 million firm, very strong gross profit, and he's turned down a number of private equity offers that were really high in favor of selling to an RIA. And the RIA that we're looking at selling him to right now has actually not done a deal in the space yet. He
Hmm.
was the first. And yet, what's attractive to him about this, even though it has a lower valuation, number one, I think he has a really good feeling, as do I, about the integrity, the character, the intentions of the RIA owner. But also, while the valuation is lower, he's not retiring anytime soon, and
Hmm.
the ability to share not only in the CPA business, but also in the RIA business, which is generally more cash flow rich and better valuation oriented, is really
Yep.
attractive to him. So there are even intermediate, considerations if you're not planning an imminent exit from the profession, but you're thinking about how to kind of position yourself for infrastructure support, talent acquisition support, ancillary service growth, more value creation for clients. There's the emotional side, there's the hard valuation side, and then there's everything in between. And so I think, we try to think about all of those things.
Absolutely. And finally, is there a mindset shift required to go from building for yourself to building for your successor?
Yes, but it only means building the firm that you wish you had built a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Um, thinking about the opportunity cost, right? Like if you're that $2 million owner who has 650,000 in all-in take-home pay, and you sell your firm, tomorrow you're going to sell it for 2.5 to $3 million, depending on the situation. Um,
Right.
3 million might even be a little rich, but depending on the
Yeah.
situation. If you're the $5 million owner who's making, all in $2 million, you're going to sell your firm for eight figures, without
Yeah.
a question, right? And so the difference, going from being 2 million to being 5 million and 650 and all in bottom to 2 million and all in bottom, is probably something that, you should have done 10 years ago if you've been at relatively the same size for a while now. But the opportunity cost of not doing it now, if you're staring kind of a 5-year timeline in the face, is much greater, because not only are you increasing your cash flow, of course, when you do this successfully, but your multiple orders of magnitude difference in enterprise value between 2.5 million and 11 million, for example. So So taking the risks now, you're almost, if they're calculated risks, if they're intelligent risks, if you have the right support, um, you're silly not to seriously explore how to build the firm that you would want to, buy, that you wanted to run a while ago. And that's true. The only way to do that, of course, is succession planning, is talent acquisition, is systems improvement. So whether you're planning to sell part or all of your business to someone on your team, or you're looking for an outside party, it reinvesting in your growth, Saul, in your firm, now when you're thinking about a 3 to 5 year exit, it's a great idea.
Well, Geoff, this has been really enlightening. So, if someone listening to this podcast is maybe 1 to 3 years from an exit, what's that one thing that they can do this week to start preparing themselves, not just financially, but emotionally and strategically?
Book a call with me. I would talk to you. No,
As simple as that.
in all seriousness, I think it's take a day off. Go for a walk, go to a beach, go to your favorite restaurant. Take a day off and think about forget about all the clients, forget about all the staff, forget about, whatever it is in your personal life that you're doing. Think about your business as if you were an owner and as opposed to a CPA, an EA, an accountant. Think about it from the outside for a second. And that's hard to do. I think that location is important to do that. And so, get out and do that somewhere where you feel comfortable and just reflect. And if you can quiet the noise for a second, you probably have a couple of threads that you can pull on that are meaningful, even questions to ask. And if you have the questions but not the answers, you can seek out subject matter experts to advise you on how to go forward.
I love that. A little bit of soul searching there. I love that advice, in fact, I heard this even in one of my webinars that, if you're looking to really sell your business, but you're not quite sure whether you're ready or not, take a day off or just exit out of it and get on the other side of the table. If you were the buyer, would you buy this business? And if you won't, why won't you buy it? That's where you'll come to know what you need to do.
Yeah, and it's easy to self-justify, right? It's easy to,
Yeah,
we call it selling your business, right? And there's sales.
yeah,
There's a sales
yeah.
component to that, and there is, but there's also a reality component to that, and we need to
Yes.
do both.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this has been great, Jeff. So, for those who want to learn more about your work or connect with you, maybe they really want to book a call with you, where should they go?
So LinkedIn is great. Geoff Bruskin. I spell my name with a G. So we post on LinkedIn all the time. Website is www.whitetigerconnections.com. And Saul, I hope to be collaborating with you more. This was great. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll be seeing each other again in a webinar as well. So I look forward to seeing you there. So thank you once again for joining me. I think this conversation is going to resonate with so many founders who are quietly wrestling with these questions. So thank you once again. And for our listeners, remember, deals aren't just numbers on paper. They're human stories, legacies, and futures. And that's why conversations like this matter. So until next time, this is Saul with Accounting M&A Insider. Take care. Cheers.
Access latest and trending CPE courses with my CPE One Unlimited Access subscription. Subscribe now